the core is what I've probably been running from all my life. You know, I grew, like I said, my grandfather was a pastor. So I grew up in the church, and I think I grew up in a wonderful church community that was always about giving and teaching and learning and that kind of thing. So I always knew I had a calling. I knew sort of kind of it wasn't to the ministry, but I didn't understand until I got older that you don't have to have a pulpit to have a ministry, or to have a calling that you feel fulfilled enough in your life to understand what its relationship is to you as an individual and to the greater good of humanity and all those kinds of things, you know, that they talk about. So when I'm working with young people, it's really about that bridging that whole piece through this calling or this mission that I think that, you know, I've been fortunate enough to be a part of for all these years you talk about.
Well, it has to be, you know, something that's inside, because I don't think you could, you know, get up, you know, there's so many other things you could be doing on Saturday mornings.
Right.
There's so many other things that you could be doing, you know, doing, you know, the many hours that you put in. So that you do, and you can tell that you get so much from it because you give so much, and you still, and it's something that happens. But the connection that you make with other people, though, who are very much seemingly have those same kind of qualities, you know, have you found that to be the case?
Well, I think what happens is, just as we talked about how you identify bridge leaders, you know, you can just see them because of how they build relationships with people. You look at their value system, you sort of understand that if there is something that, if you're building a relationship, you know, that it's going to be a thing where it comes together in a way that makes a lot of sense for everyone in that equation, as opposed to being for some selfish reason. You know, you could pick them out. So I think that over the years, what has happened for me is people are attracted to the fact that there is an opportunity, first of all, to sort of grow. Secondly, I have people reflect. You know, when you look at somebody and you see yourself in them, and if you really love yourself, how can you help not giving some of that back to that person who you see that you claim reminds you of yourself? So what is it about your growth that you liked that you can share? What is it about your growth that you didn't like that you can improve on? You know, Doc, I've gone back and got A's in classes now that I wasn't able to get A's in as a child, or thought that I didn't like a subject. Now I love it. I mean, they bring brains in a bucket, you know, from the medical school, and, you know, I would have been a doctor had I had that kind of exposure at that time. I don't regret what I've done in my life, but I realize that it's all about exposure. Exposure helps you understand that it's not the lemon that makes the fruit stay from turning brown. It's the vitamin C that happens to be in that juice, which is a component of that makes it that way. So what are the components that you have as an individual that helps you from turning brown? So I use these young people to keep me from turning brown. This world is sort of set up for you to turn brown. You know, they're my vitamin C. They're what energizes me and keeps all these contaminants away. And, you know, the people that I work with and work through as individuals are that which keeps you moving forward in that way.
You know, Keith, you made a comment some time back that's very much related in terms of what you really, as you see a concept like bridge leadership, that it requires, you know, from your viewpoint, a kind of relationship, I think you put it. and many of the people who you would put kind of in that category, who you've become close to, you talked about that relationship, how it comes about and how it moves from, sort of more collective.
Yeah. I talked about the concept of bridge leadership.
Yes.
And that bridge leadership is not just building that one bridge. It's about the initial bridge is about relationship, but relationship is something that doesn't happen in some of this fast food context that we talk about today. Like, people think that you're automatically supposed to have a relationship that has a foundation to it, and it's supposed to be expressed, mailed to you. It's something that you work on. It's something that develops. You get an R in that relationship. That might be that you make that initial contact, but then you build on that. And then the trust comes. But the true litmus test of that relationship is not so much the you and that other person. It's when that person begins to bridge, lead other relationships for you that allow you to have the opportunity to sort of develop beyond them, knowing that the bridge still leads back to them. Okay, but never sort of removes themselves from that. So what I mean by that is that they expose you to the things that have helped them grow. So they'll say to you, okay, so-and-so is here, and so-and-so, that person leads to this kind of component that will help you be more effective in what you do. So I'm going to expose you to that. Okay? So now you're exposed because the trust is that you're going to go out and build that relationship. So not only are you bridged to this person, you're bridged to that person. So now all of a sudden, this person becomes a bridge builder in the sense that now they're the foundation. They've sort of created this relationship with you. It's based on trust. It's based on personal development, because relationships, mean growth on both sides.
Exactly.
That not only is the exchange, it's going back and forth.
Yeah.
So now they're saying, okay, I want to expose you to something else out of my bag of tricks that has helped me. So they put you over here and they give you guardrails for that bridge. So these new relationships become that. So there's some new foundation that you're getting to keep you safe. Then they expose you to someone else that becomes your road, okay, on the bridge. Then they say, oh, you know what? This has to be a drawbridge, because every now and then I'm going to have something, whether it's going to be a big obstacle, it'll be a truck or something that goes on, and it has to lift up and go down. That's going to take time. And so I got to expose this person to something over here, but I trust them enough to do that. And all these relationships, you find out they link in a common way. And the common linkage is the value system. I value you enough to share with you something that's important to me. The other litmus test in relationship is oftentimes they're not reciprocal. I'm coming over to see you all the time, but you're never in my environment. When that person is willing to come into your environment, in the institution, and if you look at an organization and you say, okay, I have this wonderful relationship, but I'm always being called to come to this person's office.
Exactly.
But then all of a sudden you have activities or something that you're doing. Is this person coming to support what you're doing in your environment? Is this person getting in your environment so that they can see, well, that's not cool. I got to help this man fix this, because now I'm exposed to that. But not only that, these other relationships that I've bridged him to can help make that better. So it's a lot of linkage in this. And so I also talked to you about the fact that it takes a lot of courage to do that.
Yes, you did.
Because it takes, the courage is in the confidence in the individual that that person is what you really think that person is. Okay? Because now I'm exposing you to things that are outside of me that are valuable to me. Okay? I don't mind so much if you don't do me right. But now I'm exposing you to folk that if you don't do them right, I got to hear about it, and or it impacts a whole lot more,
Exactly.
in my environment, that's built on a whole lot. It takes confidence, it takes courage, because now I'm also saying that there's someone outside of the norm that I'm willing to go out of bounds for.
Yep.
And because I'm doing that, what am I risking in this? Am I risking a relationship with you because your mindset might not be like mine around this? But I really don't care, because as I expose you to this individual, I'm as confident that what's happened to me is going to happen to you. Because, they usually say birds of a feather sort of flock together. So if it's going to happen to you and we're this close, there has to be something about you that connects with me. And so, and that's the key to that. So my whole concept around the bridge leadership is that not only you bridging the relationship that you have with the individual who has had the benefit of that on a one-on-one basis, it's also bridging the resources that you have, both human and other, in a way that makes that bridge between that initial relationship more secure. Okay?
That's excellent. Keith, my final sort of comment that I'd like you to make, or to try to give your thoughts on it, is, we both have been in higher education for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And at, our separate institutions for quite a long time.
Right.
When you look at your institution, and I look at my institution, I think, if you had a chance to say, make some things, work on some things that you think would make the institution better in the next 10 or 15 years,
mm-hmm.
with all your experience, particularly as it relates to, people of color at the institution. If you had your brothers of being able to do something without having any problems in being able to implement it, or even if you had problems,
mm-hmm.
I know in you would
mm-hmm.
would put it in place, or you would do it if you thought in the way that you would
mm-hmm.
do it. So, what things come to mind to you that you feel that not only your institution but a number of our institutions, could benefit from?
Well, I think many of them, number one, need to remember that you shouldn't lose your soul. The soul, the core of who you are as an institution, is so important. Don't make shifts just because of some latest trend or some new kind of fad, new type of terminology that somebody has put out around what we're supposed to do in higher education. What I mean is that there are some basic fundamental kinds of things that have happened between 1968 and today around institutions that should be sustained. Values around culture and diversity, values around the idea that all of our young people come prepared to learn. I want institutions to remember what their basics are, that you're here to sort of educate all of your people, that you're here to sort of give opportunity to all of your people. You're not here to create class systems within this country, which ends up in some terms happening because we don't have the kind of access pieces. So I don't want us to lose our access mission as institutions, that we understand that at all the spectrums and all the institutions that we've set up, there are people in all of our cultures that fit those criteria. And we have to remember that we can keep all those opportunities open for our folk as we move into this next decade. That's going to be the piece that helps us survive, you know.
Yeah.
That our institutions need to pay better attention to what made them who they are, and how the access mission of those institutions, the role that it played in keeping them who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And don't make these shifts just because when I hear that our best institutions, or what are considered the cream of institutions because of their longevity and their places like this one and others, have enough sensitivity to begin to look at other ways to manage our young people through their systems, and make sure that we meet the criteria that's necessary to keep diversity going, then I think that the rest of the institutions need to have those access missions as well.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest fear, is that we have to go back and retrace that, you know, someone takes a pencil and they have an eraser on it, and all those 30 years or 40 years get erased away with just like it was just a line on a piece of paper.
Exactly.
And, you know, it was like you weren't here, which is why, you know, your book, Technology and the Dream, is so relevant, because it puts out there forever the contributions up to this point that folk have made here. It should be modeled on all these campuses, you know, because that history is going to be lost. We're not going to be in the 100-year history of a lot of these institutions' books, not as prominently as we should be. So it's a model that can be duplicated a lot of places, you know. So my biggest concern, again, is that we lose our soul in this, trying to be something that we aren't. Let's just be who we are, you know.
Well, I want to tell you, I think that there's nobody I know of, you know, as I've said to you before, in higher education, certainly whom I've met, who have been not only committed to the cause of making sure that you can do everything in your craft to help the young folks of color to try to pattern after you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,